So let us know if you have ideas and thoughts about things, and we'd like to open it up to questions today if anyone has anything you'd like to ask now. I know it's the last day, the last session, the last speaker, before you go to the kitchen, but anything? Oh, got someone in the back? Oh, well, you're up here. Go first.
Oh.
He's one of the speakers.
He's part of the panel, okay. Hans Kölsch from AOS, American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons. I'm wondering, you, in the panel, you don't have anyone from CrossCheck, but editorial manager or Scholar One work with CrossCheck too, right, for the system?
Crossref or?
CrossCheck, not Crossref.
Authenticate, yeah.
Yes, authenticate.
Yeah,
right. So when the manuscript goes from one place to the other, isn't there a risk that the receiving publisher loads it again into cross-check or authenticate, and then it raises a red flag, like a plagiarized manuscript? How do you make sure?
Not necessarily, because I think that you only deposit into your full text to be participating in cross-check once you publish. So these are pre-published. This is before publication happens. So you're not comparing against something that's already published.
Okay.
Okay?
Got it.
So
okay.
these are just manuscripts, they're not published articles. And the only things that are in that...
So as long as it's not, but then I'm confused with the DOI. You show the manuscript number, which is internal, and then the DOI, which is external, because the DOI obligates you to point to the abstract
DOI only
page.
comes in if you're in a preprint server, so it's a preprint DOI, not a published article DOI.
Okay, okay.
And I think, as we mentioned, we thought about using a DOI, but it's inappropriate to use a DOI just for the transfer.
Excellent, thank you.
So I think I got your question, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Come forward, come on.
I've Vincent Lizzie, Taylor and Francis. I'm very happy to see this work being done. It's been a topic of conversation at JATSCon that there is no kind of packaging format for JATS, and this really hits that need. So it's exciting to see. And I guess two comments. Building on the last comment, I think there's probably room to expand your scope beyond just looking at pre-publication to make this be a packaging format that, as manuscripts are deposited into your repositories, to have a standard format for doing that after publication. And that could package maybe multiple manuscripts, but just having a basic format for a single manuscript would be ideal, and it would save a lot of work because there are different requirements for different repositories, and nobody can agree, so we try to transform and serve different needs, but having a commonality would really help.
Yeah, I think we do see that as certainly another application of this. It's not one of the primary ones.
Yeah, it's the secondary one.
But it's definitely something that's on the list.
We definitely want to get some representatives from a couple of repositories involved that may be not spending a lot of time on it, but at least telling us how they're different. So, somebody with a DSpace repository, somebody with a different architecture, to make sure we understand what that would mean. Probably as platform people, Helen and Highwire, Gloss and Highwire, both are sending content to repositories now. So it's something we already see a bunch of.
Yeah. And my other question was about the point about not providing code. You have a lot of rules that you're developing about, like, the terminology, the 70 plus terms, and XML samples. It seems like you're developing a set of kind of recommended ways of coding.
It's a structure, but we're not saying how you should program it.
One thing that might help in kind of giving people guidance with that structure is to provide a schematron, which I know is code, but that would allow you to kind of embed some of the rules into a file that people can just run on their XML to see if it complies. And it doesn't have to give a validation of failure, but it can give warning messages to the user to say this is following the guidelines, or maybe this attribute that you're using to tag a certain thing is not one that's recognized by the standard. That could be helpful.
Does that make sense?
So one of the things to think about in terms of the package, and I know Joel will probably want to jump in, is that when it comes to the submission XML, the article XML, we pretty much denormalized it, or we normalized it. We pulled out anything that wasn't cohesive about the actual submission. So we took out any editor decision information, which was in the initial sample. We pulled out to and from, source and destinations. So it should be able to stand alone. This particular, it's just going to be a JATS XML file that represents the submission. There will be separate files for the peer review. The context of who it's going to and who it's going from is in the transfer XML. So I think we're looking at keeping this as generic and yet useful for many different contexts. So it can be pre-submission, submission system to another submission before it's gone through peer review. It could be from a preprint server back into a submission system, or the other way out, or to production systems, or to a hosting platform. And the way we are trying to solve that, I think, is to keep the actual submission XML, the article XML, as agnostic as possible. So it's not really focused on a particular platform, decision process, peer review. Did you want to add something?
No, Sally has this perfect, but I think what's going to happen is it's going to stand the test of time. As we get more and more people involved in the process, we might have to refine it a little bit. But for example, the one thing we didn't do is remove the journal's internal manuscript tracking number. Even though there's a tracking number in some of the other XML, maybe you need to go in and worse that, later on or something like that. But we've tried to make it so that we weren't trying to expand out JATS beyond its scope, but we knew that there was other information that we had to package up, so you can see we put into other pieces of files.
Yeah, I like that modeling, to have separate files for the different tasks. That seems like a good model to do.
And like you said, and what Helen was saying, even though some of our primary use cases may be journal to journal, you could certainly, if NCBI and PubMed Central wanted to do deposits that way, or clocks or locks or something like that, they may, over time, adopt this as their engineers work on new strategies and so on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I realized that, I manage an editorial office managing submissions, and so I realized that most of this is basically cutting out a lot of the typing in work between system to system. But if the manuscript files are bundled up, it still doesn't address the idea that my journal might be very lax in how they want the manuscript and the files and all of that stuff, and another journal might be very strict and actually return manuscripts if the margins are not the same. And so I hear from my submitters that, it's such a pain to redo those files, and that may be somewhat out of the scope of what you guys are doing, but was that at all part of your thought process about maybe having this start to generate a discussion among maybe journals in a field about, can we all just require the same thing?
Running operations myself, I would love that.
Yeah.
But I don't see that happening in the short term, and what we're trying to concentrate on is the sort of the technical back
Porting,
and forth,
yeah.
and not necessarily eliminating all of the work that the author has to do. However, it would help if you've tagged all of the basic metadata, and you can move that in. Then you may still need the author to come in and give you a data availability statement, which didn't happen in the last journal, but you need that.
Or double
you need
space the Word
something else.
file or whatever.
Exactly.
But,
or you don't like the way that their manuscript is, in 2 columns and you want 1 column. Those kinds of things. That's not going to change until we all get together and say, we want things in one way. That would be a nice next step. I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
Let's form a committee.
Yeah, let's please. At least within disciplines, so that people are not just reformatting the same thing.
I think on the technical level, though, we recognize that journals wouldn't be sharing the same quality or pieces of data but we wanted the best practices to still be useful. And so you could have some journals that pass all the source files and figures, and one that just passes a PDF, yet the best practices will still work well for them.
Yeah.
So
Any other questions?
I just wanted to add to that, and I think John had something. So each of us has that experience of transferring between journals within our own platforms, right? So editorial manager to editorial manager. Within an EM journal can be configured in so many, almost limitless numbers of ways that you can't really say everyone has to have this particular article type name. You must have this kind of item metadata. So I don't know that we were looking to lock this down to say everyone has to do it the same way. So it has to be both flexible and adaptive, and still the stuff that can be transferred, let it transfer as seamlessly as possible so that there's less work for the author. But I don't think any of us wants the authors not to have to do some work, right? So we need to keep those guys working hard. It's not possible. Pass that to you, John.
Yeah, just two comments on that. I think one of the things that some of the journals Highwire works with, and I assume others have started to adopt, is something they call format-neutral submissions. And that seems to be very popular with the authors who encounter it. It's like, why haven't you all done this? So I think that actually is going to help by essentially the author won't have to really engage in lots and lots of work until they've gotten a provisional acceptance. The second thing, it's possible that what this will lead to is asking the questions about could we standardize some of those elements, which is how the Common App for college applications got started. Now, it's a different workflow because kids apply to multiple colleges at once, right? And that's not allowed in our workflow. But it's still the same concept, is that probably most manuscripts, especially if everything goes through preprints, are going to go at least 2 places, if not 4. So I think we may start to see, okay, now we have a context to discuss in disciplines, okay, this is what it means to have data. I mean, PLOS has already done that. Maybe we all just say, yeah, those are good principles.
No.
Anything else? Okay, thank you very much.